what's the name of your page? Now, let me introduce you. Now, I came across Holly because she had a really tidy page. I was scouting through Instagram and I came across it and I said, well, she must know something, because the quotes you had on your page were really intriguing, really thoughtful. And so I made contact, and you were one of the few who responded. I don't think everybody checks their Instagram messages. What's the name of your page?
So it's Happily Ever After. And after that says _RT, because I decided to call it Relationship Tactics. Basically because HEART, heart.
Let me just put it in after _.
_RT. So Happily Ever After _RT.
Yeah, and what is your page about? Because we're going to go into it deep. So I'm just letting everyone know we're going to go into it, but we have to do the intro. We have to know who we're talking to. Go ahead.
Of course. So yeah, essentially my page is aimed at people who are already in relationships and who want to improve their relationships. And actually, it doesn't really matter what stage you're at in your relationship.
Yeah.
Whether you're kind of where I got to, which is ground zero, or whether you're kind of in a good place, but you're just looking to make things even better. And that would be a really ideal place to come at it from. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm pitching myself at. But yeah, it's very much aimed towards couples. Although the information I offer would help, I think it would help people who weren't in a relationship.
It will, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and I think I just decided to begin with, I'll just have a little target group that I aim towards. Because this just tends to be the business advice, like take a niche group and speak to those people and speak to them effectively. And definitely from my experience, I know I come at it from the angle of somebody who was in a couple and in a couple. I know I can speak to couples effectively. So that's what I'm here to do. So yeah, I want to cover everything that you'll experience in a relationship. I want to cover, all the murky stuff that we don't like to talk about, and all the fun stuff too. Like, it's not all bad. And hopefully, I can help you make it better. So yeah, that's where I'm sort of coming at it from.
Definitely. So if people want help and support, and I'm going to mention this again later on, they can come to you. You've got some, you have a skill set, and you have, I guess, a syllabus, a course to help people through. Please make use of Holly. She is there, and you've seen her page in the comments up there somewhere by myself. I'm just waving out to everyone. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time out for us tonight, because to be honest with you, guys, Holly and I are going to get quite as heavy as we can get. Yeah. And one of the great things about
it's all smiles now, but it might not be soon.
I'm telling you, like, this is it. I can't wait, because this is what we do. We do it through people's stories. We do it through honesty, transparency. It's the only way we'll make it. So you're married now?
I am, yeah.
How long's it been?
7 years.
7 years, well done.
11 years total. So yeah, seven now, very happy, very happy years, but there was a dodgy bit in the middle. So yeah, I mean, I'll let you take charge and be the guide of this, where, where's kind of a good place for, where would you like me to?
Don't worry, we'll get there. I just want to let you know, anytime my wife says hello.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, he's watching. She's just dealing with it. So yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so I think what we'll do, is we're going to start at, you said, let's take it from here, mid-story. You said to me at one point in our discussion, at one point it got dark, so to speak. And what was that point? And then what we'll do is when you tell us what happened, we're going to go in a circle from there and then bring it back. What happened and what was the what was the event that I guess woke you up? The shocker? What happened?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, literally, Andy and I sat down to dinner one night, and he said to me, "I'm not happy," and I just knew what that meant. And you know, you're kind of waiting for it, like you know, you're at the top of a roller coaster, and you're just waiting for it to go. And he just said, "I don't think I love you anymore." And literally, it just felt like the bottom had dropped out of my world. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could liken it to at the time was how it felt when my mum died. It was that level of event for me, and yeah, it was the start of a really, really kind of heavy, dark time for us, I guess. But you know, fast forward to where I am now, I'm actually incredibly grateful for this situation, but we'll get around to that. So yeah, I think, you know, from my point of view, to give you a bit of a backstory. So I was with my ex, who I never got married to, for nearly 12 years, and he was in my life at the time when I lost my mum. And after that happened, you know, it became very clear to me that, you know, our relationship was just never going to go anywhere.
Can I ask a question there?
Yeah.
When did you know that it was going nowhere?
There were a lot of times when I would sit, I remember quite clearly sitting in my kitchen, looking out the window and working out how I could afford to pay the rent on my own and how I could afford to cover the bills on my own. And the fact that those thoughts were going through my head told me, you know, I checked out. It was gone. But equally, you know, again, through all the process that I went through after my problems with Andy, I had quite a strong realization that, you know, things were never really right with my ex. I never wanted to get married to him. And I think there was a quite, you know, strong reason behind that. You know, it just never even occurred to me, like marriage was never on the table. Whereas pretty much as soon as I met Andy, things changed, and I was like, yeah, marriage, great idea, sign me up. But you know, it sounds a bit strange to kind of admit it, but I think, and it's something that I basically, before we started talking, I decided to sort of write all this stuff out in full so I could really get kind of a handle on the timeline, because obviously all this stuff happens over a huge period of time, doesn't it? And it's something that I've put on my website so that people can really get into the gory details if they want to.
What's the website?
Website is hea-rt.com, and there's a link to it on my link in bio on my Insta, so it's easy to get to. But yeah, basically I've gone into it in full gory details, but yeah, I mean, my biggest realization was towards the end of my relationship. I was in work one day and I was chatting to one of the girls, and she'd noticed I wasn't happy, and she was kind of asking me about what was up, and I was sort of saying that, you know, I had problems at home, and she was like, yeah, but you still fancy him, right? And I was like, and then it kind of gradually dawned on me that that was actually a huge part of our relationship that was missing. and that I'd kind of wanted this lovely, secure relationship that was grounded in friendship so much that I'd kind of overlooked having, you know, the passionate part of the relationship. And there's lots of kind of deep reasons behind this, because my mum was an alcoholic, and years later, talking to a psychologist, she said to me, you know, you will have craved stability in your life. And, you know, that initial relationship for me was that stability. That was kind of, you know, my mum had always said, oh, you know, first and foremost, be great friends with the person you choose to spend your life with. And we were amazing friends. Should we have been lovers? Probably not, no. And, you know, I take total ownership of that. But then equally, I was not in a place where I was as aware now, you know, as I am now, of who I am. So, you know, it's a bit of a horrible realization to say, you know, I spent all this time with this person for probably the wrong reasons. And so, honestly, truth to tell, I'm not sure if it was ever really right between us. I think he fitted in really well with my family. You know, my parents loved him. We got on great. We were, you know, great friends. But, you know, it wasn't like the reason I call my page Happily Ever After is because I'm a romantic. I believe wholeheartedly that everybody's got that one person. Everybody's got, you know, that person who, you know, it's what everybody wants in life, I believe, you know, is to have this love, to have this one person who really gets you and that you just feel crazy about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just wasn't there for me. So yeah, it was basically towards the end of my relationship with my ex. I met Andy online, actually, playing PlayStation. I know. And honestly, people are like, what? when they find out, because it's just so random. But yeah, literally, like, there was a point when PS4 launched, and there was like a beta thing where you had a little avatar and you could go and like go bowling and stuff. You're nodding. I'm guessing this may have been something that you might have.
No, I've never done it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm following you. Some people out there just like, wow. Yeah.
So yeah, we literally like, and again, probably a sign of the fact that my relationship with my ex wasn't going so well. I was spending a lot of time faffing about on PlayStation rather than, you know, spending time in my relationship. But yeah, literally, like one night I finished work. It was a January. It was a cold, dark January, and I hopped online, and there were, you know, there were some people that I, you know, were my kind of little online friends, and I'd talk to them and stuff. Like there was a lot of really like disrespectful people online that I spent a lot of time just like, no, leave me alone. Because obviously, as a woman playing PlayStation at the time, it was a bit like, you know, they're either like, are you actually a woman, or, you know, or they're just giving you loads of abuse just for giggle. And so, you know, I tried to sort of strike up a conversation with Andy, and he just wasn't having it really. And I suppose, you know, I was kind of like, oh, this is odd, because usually being a woman, you know, you're like, people are like, yeah, let's talk to her because it's a novelty. And yeah, he just wasn't having it. And I think that kind of, I was like, oh, well, this is exciting, because, you know, I'm actually having to make an effort to talk to this guy. Yeah, and we started talking about music, and we found out we both got the same taste in music. And yeah, literally that first night, we ended up talking for like 8 hours straight. And you know, I kind of went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning or something stupid. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was just like, you know, I'd finished work, I'd had a glass of wine, I was like, yeah, I'm just having fun, you know. But yeah, it just kind of gradually over time, it just became clearer and clearer that I wanted to spend more and more time talking to him. And in the background from that, my relationship with my ex just ended. I literally woke up one morning and I was like, can't do this anymore. And that was it, over. You know, and it didn't really seem to be a particular surprise to him. You know, we both kind of knew.
Neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then after that, you know, Andy and I carried on talking and talking, and eventually we decided to meet up. And the reason it took us so long was, I think, partly because it's kind of weird, like, you know, when you meet someone organically like that, and then you find that you've got feelings for them, it's all a little bit like, it's not like you've gone on Tinder and you're specifically looking for somebody and you're like, yeah, I want a relationship or want to meet up with somebody, you know. So we both found it a bit of a strange situation, and you know, we live really far apart. We're like nearly, well, at the time we were nearly 200 miles apart, so yeah, it took us a while to meet up. But yeah, after we did, that was it. You know, we were just kind of inseparable, really. Yeah, and it was, for me, it was kind of, it always felt like we were kind of meant to be together.
So you've been married 7 years. You've been together 11 years, married 7. So at what point did we start to see the fire going down, so to speak?
So it was 2 years after we got married, 2.5 years after we got married, which I'm told apparently is the classic point for things to start going south. Apparently the average length of a marriage is 8.4 years, which is pretty depressing as it goes. So yeah, 2 years, yeah, literally, and it felt to me at the time like a complete shock. And I know you said to me before, but surely you know, you saw the signs. And I think
that is a question. Let's go on there. I mean, what do you think? I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So, I think relationships are not linear events, although they're never ending. If they never end, until the point that it ends, rather. So, you know, they go up and down. Relationships don't stay up here, and if they do, they don't last long.
Yeah.
That buzz, that high. So you have this. If we say that it was like this naturally, then when someone says, "Look, I don't want to," or "I don't want to be here anymore," for example, there was a point when it started to do this, and just it kept going down, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember any signs that it was just taking a dip and never really coming back up?
Honestly, for me, like, our wedding was just amazing. And it sounds so stupid because, like, I'm not one of those, like, I know there's like loads of my friends who are the kind of people who, as little girls, they would have dreamed up their wedding, and they would have planned every detail, and you know, they knew the dress and they knew how many bridesmaids they're having and blah blah blah. And that was just never me. I just never wanted to get married. It was just never on my radar. My mum was very kind of like, you know, you're under no obligation to get married. If you want to get married, get married. If you don't. And I guess not feeling like a parental pressure or a particular sort of societal pressure.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know. I just wasn't one of those little girls that you know, was fussed about getting married. So, and yet we ended up, just 2 of us, we ended up going to Hawaii and getting married there. And it was just an incredible event on so many levels, because it's just a kind of a dream destination, and that was kind of our motivation behind it. So we were like, hey, we can get married there, and then we're already in Hawaii and we can be on honeymoon.
I recommend it. Just go away and get married and just kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, so many of my friends have said to me, do you know what? if I have my time again, you know, like a big wedding's nice and everything, but actually, if I had my time again, we'd go away, just the two of us. And because so many people had said that to me, I was like, hmm, something in this. So yeah, that's what we decided to do. And honestly, I think I was just so like depressed after we came home. I couldn't see a future in which I was going to have a sort of an experience that was that amazing again. I literally had kind of just got stuck at this one point where I was like, my wedding was so incredible. I'm never going to be this happy again. And
Okay.
which is, I know, and it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
No, no, no. I'm just trying to understand it fully. So you had an awesome wedding in an awesome place,
Yeah.
and are you saying that you were stuck on a high? Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, I think so. And actually almost like not so much that, but you know, for every high there's a reciprocal low. And I guess it was kind of like the mother of all hangovers. So,
when
you
you
know,
got back to UK?
yeah, yeah. So, you know, you have like a party, you have a night out, you have a brilliant time. You're
Mm,
pretty much guaranteed you're going to have a shaky hangover afterwards. And it was like that. It was like a wedding hangover. I suppose that's the only way I can describe it. So I was just kind of like, had this amazing, amazing hit experience up here. And I'm like, oh, regular life is down here.
mm,
But that's perhaps more to do with who I was then and how I saw life, and
mm.
that I wasn't really in control of my own. I didn't believe I was completely in control of my own destiny.
Okay, let me write that down. Control of destiny.
Yeah.
What has that got to do with how you were as a partner? Not feeling like you were in control means, or how did that affect you? So basically, are you saying that you kind of floated by? You just blew in the wind?
Yeah, definitely. And I think both of us were to an extent. Um,
So that means that you weren't proactive. So when things happened, how did you respond?
it's a good question. I honestly don't know. I just
I'm
think
prodding
that,
you. I'm prodding you live on TV
yeah,
now.
I know. You're making me think.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
do. Yeah.
I think
You. Sorry, I was just trying to interpret what you meant. I've cut you, I think. But when you said
no,
that you
no.
weren't in control of your destiny, how does that reflect?
Okay, so I suppose one one thing that I've learned in recent years is that as a couple, and it actually in life, you need to have a compelling future ahead of you. You need something to aim towards.
Hmm.
As humans, we're better when we're growing, and we're better when we're aiming towards something. Because if we stay still, we tend to just atrophy and wither. And so, you know, neither Andy or I wanted children particularly. So it wasn't like, right, we've got married, we're going to have kids.
Hmm.
Um, we'd already got a house together. You know, it wasn't like there weren't any like big milestones kind of ahead of us. Like, you know, like people just naturally get on that ladder of get married and have kids or do this and then, you know, and so, and because I wasn't really, I had believed pretty much all my life that you're kind of at the mercy of fate. So where you end up in life, and to an extent, I do still believe that fate has a hand. Um, but nowadays, I'm far more a believer in the fact that you have to take control of your destiny. You have to, you know, write your own future.
Now,
Um,
oh wow. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Mm. Why? Because I'm trying to think, are we going to go there? I mean, all right, let's just go there. Let's go there. So just to summarize where you're coming from, because I think I want those who are listening to kind of take stock of what I think is being said. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But I asked you the question earlier about where you felt that the low began, and you started at the high point, and then you got back to the UK. I think it was a hangover experience, and then probably from there, because you weren't a go get it or I don't want to use the word planner, but I guess you more reacted to life than responded, kind of thing. And so when there was any kind of adversity, then when it happened, you would. There's a difference between I don't want to preach now, but there's a difference between reacting and responding. And one is like something that you do in advance of the event, or you plan for it. And I guess you just let life happen. And I guess that comes to the question of, you know why this is important, guys? Because this is a lot of people who just are strangely confused when things aren't right, without recognizing that because they haven't prepared to respond. It's okay, I'm getting there. So my question then is a similar question. It's a similar question to before.
Yeah.
The plane was landing, or relationship-wise, metaphorically speaking, the plane is landing or dropping down, and that could be seen as a red flag kind of period where, like, hello, there are signs. And then what was Holly doing?
Not much, honestly. I think for me, it felt almost like depression, I guess. I think I was
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, I think, I was very, and had been for a long time, very unhappy in my job. And I suppose that kind of took a lot of my focus. And so Andy wasn't particularly happy in his job at the time. There was a lot of stuff going on for him. And I think it was probably easier perhaps for both of us to kind of go, oh, it's just work stuff. It's just, because inevitably, what happens in your day job, because you spend so much time at work, that will have some sort of impact on your relationship. It's like people say, oh, you don't bring your personal life to work. But of course, we're all human. You're gonna. Equally, you bring your work home, don't you? And so I guess, I think it's just, rather than us sort of really looking at the way our relationship was, we were just letting it slide, honestly. I'd love to say there was like loads of arguments going on, but it wasn't particularly. I think, it was just kind of a gradual, like, and
very quietly happening, just decay. Yeah.
And I don't think that's unique. I think, for many people that probably is the way it goes, where it just slides. You just let it slide, and at some point you need to go, right, I've got to make an effort. Something's got to change here. But honestly, it wasn't within my frame of reference, actually, at the time. I did a post the other day about there's a thing to do with your knowledge, and it's kind of
Say again? The thing to do
with your knowledge. So there are things that you know, which is like a little circle, and then there's a slightly bigger circle, which is things that you know that you don't know, which is things like you are aware maybe of the concept of brain surgery, but you couldn't perform brain surgery. So, you're like, yeah, I understand that brain surgery exists, but I can't do it. And then outside that is another huge, vast circle of things that you don't even know exist. And that was kind of where, like, relationship management, if you like, fell into for me, because I was like most people, you grow up where you see either your parents or your primary caregivers in a relationship, or whoever is bringing you up, and that's kind of where you get your learning and your lessons from. And if those two people aren't kind of high functioning, then you're not necessarily going to be armed with the tools and the skills that you need in order to, you know, have a great relationship. And I felt like, you know, we also fell into that trap of, like you do, because this is kind of the common consciousness is, if you've got great chemistry to begin with, then, you know, you've got better chances of the relationship surviving. And then people kind of cross their fingers and kind of go, yeah, we'll just, you know, see how it goes. And we're not proactive. I always kind of liken it to health and fitness. So, you know, if somebody, you know, just by seeing somebody, if they work out like 6 days a week, because it's obvious. And people completely understand that in order to get a great physique, you've got to work out. It's just, and, you know, people are always like, you know, they're interested in their diet and fitness, and they understand clearly what the rewards are of behaving in a certain way. So, you know, if you exercise more, eat less, you get the results. We don't think this way about relationships. We kind of just cross our fingers to an extent. You know, whether you agree. And, you know, the divorce statistics tell us that this isn't maybe the best way to handle things. Because depending on where you look, divorce figures are something like 40 to 50% of all marriages. It's a huge, huge figure. And so for me, you know, when Andy and I were learning all about relationships and how to heal our relationship, there were so many times that we sat there and we were like, hang on, if we'd known this before, we wouldn't be in this situation. But it's stuff that nobody goes to find out unless their relationship is at crisis stage, or, you know, you happen to be a psychologist and you kind of know this stuff anyway. So I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you know, if people were empowered with this information, we could all be, you know, skipping off into the sunset and being happy, rather than getting to the stage which I did, which was incredibly painful and miserable and awful, and I don't want to go back there, and I don't want anybody else to go back there. So, you know, that's kind of where I got to. But yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, I just feel like part of the key thing about your relationship is being able to read the signs. And honestly, I couldn't do it. I didn't do it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting. I think because we're talking about two things here, two kind of red flag issues here. One of them, I think, is seeing the sign, not seeing the sign because you're not equipped. And the other thing, maybe three. And the other thing is seeing the sign and saying nothing in the hope that.
Go away.
Say again?
That it might go away.
And I'd love to go into that a little bit. What's the time now? I just wanted to go through a couple of comments and a lot of people to wave at. I'm so sorry, I've not waved at anyone. All right, so that's the beginning. Someone made mention of something you said earlier. I can't remember. I think it was Rex, asked about the spark. Oh, how important is that spark in a relationship? So this is earlier on when you were talking about how you felt when you were getting married and when you met the man of your dreams online? How important is that spark? Yeah.
I think my personal experience tells me that it's massively important. You know, if you watch First Dates, which personally I love that show, love it. Then, you know, you always see people get to the end and they're like, oh, the spark wasn't there. But actually, and it maybe has become a bit overused at this point, but equally, there's a thing about what all relationships ideally need to have. It's a little like diagram thing, and it's basically the sort of three cornerstones of a relationship are commitment, intimacy, i.e. emotional intimacy, not sexual intimacy, and passion. And many people might have one of those things in a relationship.
Oh, okay.
I'll pop it on my stories.
Yeah, what did you say? What was the first one?
So it's commitment, intimacy, and passion. So you might have intimacy and commitment. So you might be able to be really open with somebody and you might feel committed to them, but you know, the passion part, the sex part is missing. Or you might have commitment and passion, so you want to be with each other and it's great and it's sexy and it's fun, but you don't open up to each other because the intimacy bit's missing, so you're missing the depth to the relationship. So it plays out in loads of different ways. It's a really interesting way to look at it. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I feel like to get the relationship that you really want, of course, you've got to look at that person, you know, however many years on, and you know, like, and to be honest, I saw my parents doing this, you know, like 40 years into their marriage. You know, my mum was like, oh, look at him, you know, and you know, that's kind of, that's where you want to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, there's days that you want to kill them, but but you know, you've still got to have that thing where you're like, yeah, you're still hot. So yeah, I do believe it's really important. I think the issue in long-term relationships is that tends to be the thing that kind of evaporates, doesn't it? Because essentially we just kind of stop making an effort, stop making as much effort as we perhaps did when we were first together and, you know, high on oxytocin and dopamine and vasopressin and all the other drugs that go through your head when you're in love. So yeah, I think it's in answer to that question, I do think it's
so I have a question for you. If the feelings go,
yes,
disappear, or you can't connect with your feelings regarding the other person, does that mean the love is gone or the relationship is over?
I think people truly know if they still love somebody, if you still have love for somebody. Now, I know in Andy's case, he said to me, oh, I don't think I love you anymore. And what we later learnt was that actually what he was saying was, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And there's quite a difference there because, you know, like with my ex, totally the love was zip. But I actually think, I just feel like if, you know, if two people, because you see people who, you know, they've been struggling in their relationship for years and you're thinking, well, why are you still together? And I believe the reason they're still together is because somewhere inside they know that there's still love there. They just can't quite see the wood for the trees. They can't quite work out how to make it better. And they just need someone to hold their hand and say, you can make it better, it's fine, you know, which is, you know, what I'm here waving the flag about. But sometimes I think because we're not taught how to be in a long-term relationship. We're not taught how to, you know, fight effectively and communicate effectively and respect each other and make each other feel, you know, seen and heard and validated. You know, all of these things that add up to just a much more pleasant climate in your relationship. So,
wow.
yeah, I think.
What do you think? I'm just trying to work out before we, yeah, okay, we've got a little bit of time before the next half, if that's all right. What do you think that's about when a couple kind of fall? Because I've heard the term before, and I think people use it maybe slightly differently. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. What do you think are some of the things that cause that?
Actually, there's a very definite thing that causes it, and I don't know if you've heard of attachment theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, for people listening, very, very briefly, attachment theory is something that was developed by a psychologist called John Bowlby
Mm-hmm.
at some point in the 1900s, late 19th century, 1900s. And it's basically to do with when you're a child, depending on how you're parented, you will develop a particular, what they call an attachment style. So if you're, and there's 4 types, and you're either securely attached, does what it says on the tin, you're anxious, avoidant, or anxious avoidant. And what happened was, after John Bowlby died, some other psychologists picked up this work, and they realized that because these attachment styles that are set when you're a very small child, they actually carry on through to your adulthood. You know, your personality type essentially is set for life, and it kind of governs the way that you are as a person and how you relate to people in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in brief, secure people tend to attract secure people, and secure people are very able to express what their needs are and get their needs met in relationships. The issues tend to come where you've got anxious people and avoidant people, and then the last type, anxious avoidance, they're a very, very small percentage of the population. And I was an anxious avoidant. I've actually changed my attachment style now to be securely attached, which is
Oh, you have to talk about that later. Oh, okay.
But yeah, in brief, so what happens is anxious people and avoidant people tend to attract each other. They end up in a relationship together. And anxious people tend to be the kind of people who, if they're upset, they get really shouty because they're quite needy people. And this was kind of, you know, I really related to this in relationship. So when you're upset, you're like, ah! And what you're essentially doing is going, look at me, help me, do this, ah! You know. And what then happens is that your partner, who is more than likely an avoidant person, they can't cope with that because they're all about sex. And they're like, oh, I can't do this. So what you end up with is 2 people in a relationship who are fundamentally incapable of meeting each other's needs. You've got a person who's leaning in and going, help me, help me, help me, and the other person's going and leaning back and going, no, 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 no. And you know, you see a lot of this online where, you know, like people are getting really crazy because they're like, when you've got 2 people who are doing that because this person's demanding attention and this person doesn't feel capable of giving the attention, what's going to happen is this person kind of retreats into their shell. And in our relationship, Andy was this person. And so what that looks like in an avoidant person's head is, I know I love you, but I don't feel the, you know, sparkly twinkly and love feelings. And the trick essentially is learning for the needy person to back off a bit. And then this person can kind of come out of the shell and take a deep breath, and you get back onto an even keel together. It's the best way to describe it in a very short amount of time. And actually, attachment theory was one of the biggest sort of aha moments for us in terms of the way that we managed to fix our relationship, because once we understood more about who we were as people, what that means is you cease to react to someone's behavior, and instead you look for the reasons behind the behavior.
Because you're more conscious of who and why.
Yeah.
Happening.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing, because once you learn it, it changes your mindset massively. Because instead of you just thinking, oh, he's being a jerk, you're like, ah, I know why he's doing this, because he's blah, blah, blah. And I know why I'm reacting this way. And, you know, I became very conscious of the fact that I was being very needy and, you know, very much in need of attention. And, you know, I couldn't bear it if, you know, like for him to process, he needed to go out, have a lot of space, go for long walks, be on his own for hours. And obviously me being a needy mess, I was like, I can't cope with this, I can't cope with this. And it just, you know, it triggers you basically. And once somebody then points out to you where you're going wrong, and you recognize your own behavior and the other person's behavior, you kind of go, oh, yeah, that's fine. I completely understand why he's behaving that way. I understand why I'm behaving this way. And I can just calm down. And it's honestly, I think, you know, there's no one thing that I think I would attribute to having particularly changed, you know, one thing that we learned that changed everything. But that for me was a massive, massive thing. You know, understanding somebody at such a fundamental level just changes the way you see them forever.
Okay, so this is it. We've got 5 minutes to spare in this first half, but what I'm gonna do is I want to ask you some questions.
Go for it.
All of which we're going to answer in the next session. So I'm just letting everyone know. Rex, this is a game changer. I'm telling you. So I'm just responding to these comments. And, you know, Rex, I know he's got his notepad out. W Talk Network, welcome. Listen, here we go. I want to know how you changed your attachment.
Okay.
We want to know, and this is a question I picked up, is love enough to keep a long-lasting relationship or marriage? And then how did you turn your marriage around? One, what are you saying? Me too. What do you mean by me too? Let me know before we end this session. So we've got those questions for you, because I like the way you broke down. This is why my eyes were like squinting. I'm like, I like the way you broke down attachment into that question of how people are missing each other. We all need to educate ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's, you know, that is what I'm going to be, you know, banging my gong about forever, I think, because I believe that people can look at relationships in such a different way. We can say, you know, relationships can be amazing. You just need to be armed with the right information. It's like anything. You don't need to wait till it completely goes up in a mushroom cloud to go and seek help. You know, so my one of the things I heard recently was I watched John Wick 3, and Ian, such a good film. Yeah. You know, when Ian McShane's character says the Latin thing, what's it? Something's.
I can't remember, but yeah, I know.
Yeah. But the parabellum, which is the like subtitle of the film, isn't it? Which it basically means, if you want peace, prepare for war. And I was like, whoa. And
that's
like,
deep. All right.
This is what people need to know in relationships. So, right, pretty much most martial arts, people learn martial arts so that they can handle a fight, not so that they can go and have a fight. And that is where I'm coming from. I'm like, just learn it so that if these things pop up in your life, you're like, you know.
That's it, right?
Seriously though, like that's all it is. You know, I just think the skills are there to be had. And if people have them, like you see somebody who knows martial arts, they just they walk in a different way. They handle themselves in a different way because they're prepared. They know if anything happens, they can handle it. And
Okay.
that's where I want people to be. I want people to be like, anything that pops up in my relationship, I'll handle it.
Okay. Okay. Guys, listen, we're going to go into the second half. So he says, where are these bars coming from? Basically, he likes what you're saying. A lot. We're going to go to the second half, and we're going to hear from Holly, who's going to tell us how she turned her marriage around, is love enough to keep a long-lasting relationship, how she changed her attachment, and we're going to talk about Parabellum. See you in a moment. See you guys in a moment. About 10 seconds time. It's getting deep, Rex. Pippa, it's getting deep. Oh, this is not turned on. Goodness. Charger just sitting there. Coppers, again. One Deluve. Listen, hopefully I said it right. I'm like, should we wait for people to join or should we just get into it? Bro, take notes. Or sis, I don't even know. I'm guessing you're a brother. Here we go, man. Let's just bring it on. Happily ever after _ Let's go. Let's go. All right, good to have you back.
Hey.
You're going to have to learn, you're going to have to make sure that you answer these questions. All right? You're under pressure and you've got to do it perfectly. You set the bar high. You've set the bar high because the way that you introduced attachment to us, it's helped people understand. Let's have a look at. It's helped people understand. Sorry, I sometimes start sentences and then I change to another sentence. It's my brain doing 2-3 things at once. Forgive me. So we were talking about attachment, and I remember being taught about attachment in the sense that the style of relationship you have with your parents is what you carry into your future. And one of the critiques was, attachment says that's who you're going to be. So if those of us who didn't have good relationships with our parents or were abandoned as children, we're going to carry those into the future. And one of the criticisms for that was that actually you can change your attachment style. So just bearing in mind that those who are needy, like you said that you may have been, now people are listening to the show and thinking, is that me? But there's hope, right?
100%. 100%.
How do you change your attach? So look, okay, let me just break it down again, because I know, especially, I can't say especially, but well known in the Caribbean community, and it's more with people in my age and older, still happens now. It's a matter of poverty versus trying to make life better. Sometimes parents have to leave their children abroad, come here. Happened with my grandparents as well, both sets of parents, where they had to come here. They've got children. They come here to make a better life. The mother, maybe, she comes here. Maybe she'll bring the husband later on, or maybe he goes ahead. And the children are left behind with grandma, and it's like, where's my mum gone? You know, and that pain, I know that pain. And so they come here, and then they get married, say, and then they have more children, and so those children grow up here, and there's about 2 or 3 children left at home, and they're bitter.
Yeah.
And they come here. This is common in our Caribbean stroke British history.
Yeah.
And so the impact is great on how we function as people. Again, it's not just a Caribbean thing, but it's just something I recognize. How then do I change how my history, hopefully you can hear me, it just cut out. Oh, wait, no, wait, it's still there. Here you go, you can hear me? How then do I change what my history has done to me? There's a question for you.
Yeah, and you know, that was definitely where I approached it from. So of those 4 attachment styles that I mentioned earlier, I was what they call anxious, avoidant, or disorganized.
You were
And
all of those.
Yeah. And that tends to be children who have had trauma or abuse, like you were saying, or in my case, my mum was an alcoholic. So, right, give me 2 minutes. So this is the way that it was explained to me. This is an easy way to understand as a kid what attachment really. I mean, this is super basic, but it really helped me understand how it works. So, say you're a mum sitting in a room with your baby, well, your toddler, and toddler decides they want to go and explore, and so off they toddle out of the room and they explore, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's go find mum now. Come back, mum is still sitting where they left her. They know it's safe to go and explore. These people become the securely attached people because they know that their environment's safe, and if they decide to go and explore, they come back and there's a safe place for them to come back to. Then you've got the type who toddler tries to go off and explore, and the mum's like, no, don't do that, that's not safe, come back. And the child never really feels that they can kind of get away and explore.
Yeah.
So these people grow up to be the arm's length people. They are the people who need lots of space, and they are the people who are the, you know, falling back in a relationship. And, you know, they will deal with things in a certain way because they didn't get the space they wanted as little children. Then you'll have the toddlers who go off and explore, and when they come back, mum's either not there, or they find mum and she's like, what are you doing? Leave me alone, get away. And they feel abandoned and they feel upset, and because they're not getting the love and the nurturing response they want, or mum's just completely absent. So they grow up being a very needy person. And then the final version is disorganized. So it's kind of a mixture of the above, where you grow up not really knowing what response you're going to get at all. So that kind of lays it out, and that might help people understand a little bit better. I mean, it is literally really surface level, but I felt that kind of.
And just to be clear, some of the responses of the child are shaped by how the parents would have managed or treated them, or if they abandoned them, or if they showed them affection, and so they learn to manage this what's given to them, and that's how they develop. So yeah, I'm just adding to that very briefly.
Yeah, 100%. So like I said in part 1, you know, it tends to be that secure people will end up with secure people. It's less likely that a secure person will attract somebody who is one of the other types. And what is much more likely is that the anxious type and the avoidant type end up together. And then obviously the problems start because you've got 2 completely opposing personality styles and ways of dealing with things in a relationship. You know, it's you're literally talking a different language to each other, aren't you?
Yeah.
And when you don't understand that, you can understand why so many people fall into this massive pitfall, you know, because it's too easily done. We don't know this stuff. So for me, in answer to your question of how I changed it, because honestly, like, so my type, the disorganized type, is like, I think it's like 2 or 3% of the population, and anything you read about them, it says, oh, complete relationship no hopers, can't function in a relationship. Yeah, literally, like, I'm like, whoa, whoa there. And the truth of it is that I think because Andy and I understand how each other work now, and we're able to recognize each other's behaviors as well as our own, we can now meet each other's needs effectively. So a lot of the problems that pop up in a relationship are to do with unmet needs. So now, if I have a day where I feel needy, not only do I recognize that need, but I also just go, need some attention. It sounds so stupid. I'm sure people have seen that meme online where this girl just like, oh, you know, my husband and I just say to each other, I need attention. It's a massive time saver. Completely is. Completely is. Like, I'm just like, I'm really sorry. I'm feeling needy today. I just need some love. You know, make me feel nice. And then I'm done. You know, like, but whereas before, I would have gone inside my head. I would have built it up to be a massive problem. I would have decided that he was horrible and he wasn't giving me attention. And, you know, suddenly I'll have escalated it into something it wasn't. And it would have blown up. All because I couldn't kind of read and recognize what was going on. And when you consistently change your behavior and behave more like a secure person, where you recognize needs and consciously take the decision to fulfill each other's needs, then you put yourself in a position where you can behave like a securely attached person. And so now, I mean, honestly, I was surprised myself. If I'm honest, I was a bit like, I was skeptical. I just thought, I don't think you can change someone's type. But yeah, I've done like 3 different attachment theory tests, and every single one of them came out that I was securely attached. I was like, whoa, look at me.
Securely. Oh, so things have changed.
Yeah, things have changed.
Yeah.
I literally, through us learning about how to sort of deal with each other in a relationship, I have literally managed to change my attachment style.
All right. So before you go any further, I've got a feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're not going too fast. I think that people think that it's more complicated than it is as to how you resolve this. So I don't want it to go over anyone's head. It's beautiful what you're saying, but someone here, that's my wife, she's saying, spell it out. Like,
Google.
Let's go. Well, actually, did you sit around a table and go and say, right, I know how you feel about me. You said it. I just went on the internet and I just came across this attachment theory test. Let's do it. I mean, we want to know how you get to that point where it looks broken and finished, but now you're educating yourself and improving your relationship. How do you build that? There's a gap there in our understanding, which would help us. Can you break that down a bit?
Yeah, of course. So immediately after, basically in the few weeks following, you know, Andy turning around and saying, I don't think I love you anymore, he chose to go to therapy on his own.
Okay.
And because he was really struggling to deal with things, and he wanted to deal with things in his own way and in his own head, which again, I understand is him.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it scared the bejesus out of me, because I was like, oh, the therapist's going to make sure that he breaks up with me. But you see what I mean? Like, this is when you start acting like a crazy person because you don't understand the process. So meantime, I was looking for help, and I went to see Relate, And although they were helpful, their advice seemed to make things worse rather than better. And so I spent a lot of time online, kind of just, I can't even remember how I came across it, but I basically came across this guy who had got a video on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, he seems to know what he's talking about. And I checked out his website, and
That was me.
like, oh, yeah.
Me. I know it was me.
It was you. And yeah,
What was his name?
Bruce Music, bizarre name, South African guy.
MUSIC.
No, MUSIK.
Okay. Cool.
So I found Bruce's website, and his website basically said, I can heal your relationship in 7 weeks. And I was like, yep, you know, I'm desperate. I need to sort this out. That sounds like a good time frame for me. So I signed up for it, and it was quite a few weeks actually until the start date of his course, because he kind of did it where he had like live calls with people, so he had to do it on a certain time frame. And things were really kind of grim between us in the lead up to that course. But true to form, in the 7 weeks, what he taught us did manage to get us back into a place where we could start looking at moving forward.
Yeah.
And, you know, a place where we were far more on the same page. And we both quickly realised after that, you know, that was just kind of the start of the work.
Good.
And honestly, we spent weeks, if not months, you know, raking over old ground and going over things that had happened to us in our lives that we may have never actually told another human being before. And, you know, there was a lot of tears and a lot of heartache and a lot of hurt, but it was all stuff that we needed to just, you know, unburden ourselves. And we understood it was kind of a really important part of the process of going through this. It was a hard time. It was, you know, there's lots of things that happen to you in your life that I'm sure you'd rather never remember them again. And sometimes these things just, you know, pop into your head, and you just think, oh God, you know, that we knew how important it was, and we both kind of said, you know, we want to make this work, we want to make it better, because we knew how good it was to begin with. So the upshot of doing that course initially for me was that I just, not only was I invested in the process, obviously for the sake of getting my relationship back on track, but I just loved all the psychology and all the theories and everything about it. I was like, this is amazing. And it sort of sparked off this love for me of everything to do with psychology and relationships and how things work, and personal development. And yeah, just so, as much as it was hard work on one level, on another level, I just kind of completely loved learning all this new stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, but I suppose, again, you know, likening it to health and fitness, if you've got, you know, 3 stone to lose, A, you didn't put that on in a week, B, you're not going to lose that in a week, and C, you know that you're going to have to put in the effort and cut out the calories in order to make the change. And, you know, if you're changing your body, you've got to put in this huge surge of energy, and then you'll get to a point where you're maintaining. Same with a relationship. You know, it didn't go south, you know, in a week. It's not going to be fixed in a week. You are going to have to put in a big surge of energy to get it to the right place, and then you can maintain it. It's exactly the same, in my opinion. But we just had to go through, a lot of just. I feel tired thinking about it. It was horrible, like you don't want to have to drag up your past.
Yeah.
And we did it, because we knew that was the very best thing that we could do.
So that goes into Parabellum.
Yeah.
If you want peace, you have to have war.
No, prepare for war.
Prepare for war, should I say?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
So yeah, I honestly felt like there were too many things that we learnt that we both said time and time again, if I'd known this before, I wouldn't be sitting here now. And I would love to be able to help anybody and everybody to kind of look at their relationships in this way, where it's so much more empowering to go, statistics aren't great about relationships, something somewhere isn't really working. And so what I'm going to do is, whilst I'm in a good place, while I'm 2/3 of the way up the mountain, I'm just going to get a little bit of help, because it's a lot harder to, get 2/3 of the way up the mountain, get down to the bottom again, and then have to go up to the top. It's just so much easier to start while you're ahead. And if we had been in a position where after we got married, if we could have sat down and learnt all this stuff, we would just never have got into this ridiculous situation, really. We would have looked at each other and our relationship as in just a completely different way. And I really feel like, the divorce statistics tell us that it's not going right somewhere. And I feel like it doesn't need to be that way. So yeah, that's kind of my own personal little crusade, because I'm like, the information's there. Just don't wait till it hits rock bottom before you learn it.
Yeah, people. I want to encourage everyone to know that if they are in a struggle, that things might have to get, in a sense, worse before they get better. And don't think it's one conversation. It could be months, it could be a solid year or two of just consistently working it out. Could be a week, but it's not an overnight thing. And old habits don't go easy. Yeah, the past doesn't leave easily.
I honestly think it took us maybe probably 2 years.
Wow.
And
so wait, so with all this knowledge of attachment and you're dealing with your past, still took 2 years. And what do you mean by it took 2 years? Do you mean it took 2 years for us to be where we are now? And where are you now?
We're in a brilliant place now. We've consciously created the kind of relationship that we want. And for us, that looks like a relationship where, because we're making the effort, we are keeping the passion alive. We have a relationship where fundamentally we both feel safe to be ourselves. And there's a little more I can say around that concept.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
And it's a relationship built on respect for each other and really great understanding of each other. So when I talk about safety. Yeah. And it's a kind of an odd concept because people don't talk about it too much. But obviously as humans, we love to feel safe.
Okay.
And if you feel threatened, you naturally go into fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And that obviously when you're in a relationship with somebody, your other half tends to know how to push your buttons. So it's quite easy for them to get you into fight or flight mode. And the problem with fight or flight mode is that your body gets flooded with certain chemicals, so you don't actually think straight.
Yeah.
And so if you're in a relationship where the climate is very much fights and arguments, you may never actually get out of fight or flight mode and actually get to that point where you're like, you're constantly like ready for a fight, and that's, you're never going to have a state in your relationship where you can really feel like you can open up to somebody if you constantly feel like you're trying to deflect an argument or you want to start a fight with them.
Yeah.
And another important thing about this is obviously that it kind of kills people's sex lives, because again, in fight or flight mode, you're not really thinking about your sex life, you're thinking about fighting. So from a lot of different angles, fight or flight mode is bad. So it's kind of having tactics in place to put the safety back so that you can both relax around each other and start to be yourselves again, and not acting out of your amygdala, I think it is, that you in your brain, where you're acting in a way that's not really you, is probably the best way I feel to explain it. So yeah, I think safety in a relationship kind of for me looks like just knowing that that person's got your back. So whatever you're doing, knowing that that person is there to support you. For example, I very recklessly jacked in my day job about 6 weeks ago, and Andy was completely supportive of that, even though he's probably thinking, what are you doing? And I could kind of see it on his face, but bless him, he was just like, yes, darling, it's very important that you're not unhappy at work. But support, knowing someone's got your back, even through like stupid little things, that sense that somebody, and actually I think I really see this on watch that SAS, Are You Tough Enough program, and you see these guys who've been in the SAS together, and they are completely reliant on another human being to physically have their back and to hopefully prevent them from being killed. And you see the bond between these people. It's insane, like it's stronger than most marriages.
Wow.
You see how close these guys are, because they know 100%, like they go through all these stages and all the SAS training, and they know they've been in a combat situation with somebody who 100% would take a bullet for them. And ideally, you're not asking your other half to take a bullet for you, but it's that sort of concept where you're saying basically that other person is totally your wingman, you've got each other, and then you can feel safe around each other, and you're not constantly in fight or flight mode and wanting to kick off at each other. So that's kind of safety in a nutshell, I would say.
Is love enough to keep a long-lasting relationship or marriage? Marriage.
Yeah, 100%. I think love is the reason that keeps people together. But I do recommend having some skills too.
Right.
Like I said, you know if you love somebody or not. I don't know if anybody could really honestly ask themselves that question and not come back with the answer. You know in your heart of hearts that you love someone. And I've got some friends who, oh my gosh, you know, their relationship's like a massive war zone, and neither of them can wind their necks in long enough to stop it from being that way. And I was like, well, why are you still together then? And they're like, well, I know I love him, obviously, and I know I love her, obviously. Come on.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, love is actually what keeps people together. It's just all the other stuff that gets in the way. And so, yeah, I think, you know, for me, if my job is anything, it's to kind of try and help people find ways to get rid of all the stuff that's getting in the way of them actually feeling the love. You know, go back to feeling how you used to feel when you were first together, and it was all, you know, butterflies and you know, fireworks. And I do believe it's possible. You know, I feel like I've seen it from both sides of the equation. And I know that, yes, it's taken us a lot of work. And do you know what? I'd love to say something else. I'd love to say there was a magic pill. And
that was it. So, whilst you're on the line, tell us more, if you don't mind. Tell us more about how your relationship is. I think it's important, and it's because it's positive. I think it's all good. I think because you've come a long way in my opinion, a short period of time, and because you did something really simple, I would love to know how it is now. Just a little bit more detail.
So in terms of, you know, just how we are together, or on a daily basis?
Yeah, I guess in contrast as well.
To what, when it was bad, or what it was like in the beginning, or?
No, forget the contrast. Just tell us how it is.
Yeah, it's very calm.
Yeah.
You know, when people say like, oh, if people don't fight, it's, you know, it's not.
It's a bad sign. Yeah.
A bad sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, we've kind of argued out all the big issues. So yeah, now we have a go at each other about stupid stuff. Like, we could literally kill each other over something stupid like doing the washing up or loading the dishwasher. Like, literally, it's so stupid. And both of us kind of stop and we're like, why are we doing this? It's literally not important. But the big stuff, we just know. We're like, we'll just sit down, have a conversation about it. We learned a great technique that's kind of linked to how hostage negotiators deal with people.
So we need to do some hostage negotiation studies.
Yeah, there's a great guy. I was watching a video of his today called Chris Voss, who was an FBI hostage negotiator. Watching his stuff on YouTube, he's fascinating, honestly. No word of a lie though. Honestly, like, I was listening to this guy and I was like, yep.
I'm serious. Yeah. I'm going there. I'm going to do it because it could be a hostage situation sometimes. You know what I mean?
But it sounds so ridiculous, and yet I'm sure that anybody here who's, you know, in the comments, you've probably been in a situation where you're like, you probably could have done with a hostage negotiator to sort out some of your conflicts in marriage. Yeah. You know, there's all sorts of ways that you can sort things out, and I think because now we've got the skills to deal with the big stuff, and also I think because, you know, I don't feel kind of triggered anymore by Andy's behaviour. So, for example, if before all this happened, if he'd go out with his friends, I would be like, oh my god, stressing out about it, worrying that he was going to be like meeting other girls, and, you know, just generally being jealous, I guess, for want of a better word. And something that I was taught was a great way to look at things is, are you acting out of fear or are you acting out of love? And if you find yourself acting in a certain way that you're a bit like, you know, there's not a great way to be acting, apply that filter. So for me, if he's out for the night and I'm stressing about him meeting another girl, that's just my fear. That's just my fear talking. I'm just worrying about something. Rather than now that I've worked that out, now that I've dealt with it, all I worry about is after he's had a few drinks, he likes to walk home down like really dark alleyways and paths, and I'm like, oh, please don't do that. Like, you know, so I'll just like slip a tenner in his back pocket and be like, just please get a cab home. I'm like, this is your cab money, for God's sake, just get home safely. And I'm like, well, you know, nowadays I'm like, go out, do what you want, you know, you're your own human, get on with it. You know, fundamentally you've got to live with, you know, if you decide to do anything untoward, that's up to you to live with it, because, you know, you've got your own moral compass to deal with. It's not up to me. So yeah, I suppose that's maybe a helpful contrast. That nowadays I'm like, he goes out for night, I'm like, great, I will get a bottle of wine, watch some like soppy girly movies, just like totally enjoy my space. But yeah, once you work through these issues and once you understand why you behave the way you do, you can stop acting that way.
Do you know what? You know what I really appreciate? And you've actually dealt with that really nicely. What I really appreciate is you haven't given us a fairy tale. I'm so glad. I've got a few questions here for you. But before I go there, I just want to say so much thank you to both of you, Andy as well, for just putting it out there about this journey. It's a really nice version of change. And I think some of us are a bit like, that was too easy. But really, you presented something that is actually really simple. It might not be easy to do, but it's really that simple. Your bravery, your honesty has been awesome. I want to throw, send those hearts, people. She needs it, you know what I mean? It's like, she deserves it. She deserves it. They'll be coming. It's good to know change is possible. So that's what someone has said there. Where do you get the attachment tests?
You can just find them on Google. Just
Google it.
The wonder of Google. So yeah, just look for attachment theory tests.
I thought he was going to say tantric there.
Yeah. There's loads of them out there. And yeah, just give them a whirl. It's a bit strange though, because some of them, they break them down into like 5 different types or 6 different types. So maybe I'll maybe have a quick look online and see if I can find one that I think is good, and I'll pop it on my Insta stories. But yeah, I mean, essentially just have a look online, because you will find stuff about attachment theory on there, and it's a very, very powerful thing.
Someone said the exercise example or analogy was really good. Here we go. I'm just running through. Love plus skills equals strong marriage. That would do.
Yes.
Let's go. Chris Voss, the hostage negotiator, because some of us are in a hostage situation. He's actually very good, Chris Voss, someone said. Someone wants you to explain it. The situation of hostage negotiation. I think it was in the context of learning to rationalize and reason with yourself and the situation to hand, a moment of possible conflict. So the hostage negotiator gives us mental skills. Is that what we're looking at? Yeah,
partly that, and partly they do something. Well, he does something known as mirroring. And this is actually, there's a few different techniques around this. And there's a particularly good one which I will be teaching in my little course that I'm creating for you.
Yes.
But yeah, essentially the idea behind mirroring is when someone's talking to you, he said all you need to do is kind of repeat back the last few words that they say. Basically what it does is it appeals to a certain part of your brain to tell you that you've been understood and heard, which is basically half the battle when you're having an argument.
Say that again. Say that again.
You're basically, so it's called mirroring. And the way he explains it is you repeat back the last few words somebody said, or you repeat back a few words that they've said in a sentence, to show that you're listening to them and that you've heard what they're saying. And it basically, it's kind of helps to calm down your fight or flight mechanism. So, I always say, like, a fight can play out two ways. So it can either be, you're not listening to me, or thanks for listening to me, because you have a choice. So there's a lot of temptation in an argument to prove that you're right. But there's also another way to look at it, which is you can appreciate somebody else's point of view without having to agree with them. So if you can listen and to your loved one and understand what they're saying and show that you understand them, you don't have to agree with them. You can just show that you understand them. That is a really great way to diffuse an argument, because it also, if you're actively listening, you're taking your attention away from proving you're right. So, if you were telling me you're upset about something, I'm going, okay, so, what I'm hearing you say is you're upset because Y and Z, and, you feel this way, this way, this way. And you're like, yes, I do. And then, you carry on saying it. The idea is that after a certain amount of time, you'll have got it all off your chest. And you'll be feeling seen and heard and validated. And it just calms the situation right down.
And everybody needs to do this. Like, both couples need to practice this.
You know what? I think it is a great technique. It's a great technique. But like I said, there's a couple of ways to go about it. And obviously, Chris Voss, really interesting guy. And he was dealing with very much more life and death situation.
So it must work, right? Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you just said, kind of like, in the heat of an argument, if you could remember to be curious and ask questions and actively listen to somebody, kind of takes you out of the moment. So it takes you out of the heat of wanting to fight with somebody, and instead you're just concentrating on just trying to understand where they're coming from.
I just want to remind everyone that Holly said she changed her attachment style, which I guess is mindset and wiring. Change is possible for all of us, at least in various degrees. I am management one. Thank you. Trying to read these usernames. Chris Voss's book is really good, she said. He or she says. It's a she. What's your two more things? What's your number one? Can you narrow it down to a number one tip out of all that is said to everyone listening in a relationship or marriage?
100% knew you were going to ask me this question. It's so hard. Okay, so
you might want to give two. If you can't do one, maybe go for two.
Okay, so if you want something that requires no understanding of any psychology or any theories or any particular learning. Honestly, the quickest way, I believe, to change the climate of your relationship is by practicing gratitude. And this may not be what you're expecting to hear.
No.
And the reason is that, so
you have to explain what that is.
Yeah. So most people will have heard probably of the book called The Secret, about law of attraction.
Okay.
And the basic principle behind the law of attraction is that you get more of what you look for in life. So if you look for bad stuff, more bad stuff tends to show up in your life. And equally, if you look for good stuff, more good stuff shows up in your life. This is it at such a basic level. But that's the basis of it. And again, if you're in a relationship where you're struggling, the tendency can be to only look at the bad things, like he never does this and he never does that, and she always says this and she always does that. And we're always just completely focusing on all the negatives. So one thing that we were taught to do was, it sounds, honestly, even at the time I thought this is crazy, is basically to have a gratitude journal, and you leave it in the bathroom and you both write in it every day.
Okay.
And you learn to, the idea is you say thank you to your other half, and you say thank you for anything and everything, and actually particularly the small things. John Gottman, who I think I remember hearing another guest that you had on talking about John Gottman, I believe.
Yeah. John Gottman, we know about him.
He's a really famous relationship researcher. So he basically says in any relationship, in order for them, like from their research, they found that successful relationships have 5 times more positive interactions than negative. And he always likens it to like almost like a bank account. So, you've got to be filling up your bank account with good stuff. So then when the negatives happen, when the withdrawals happen, you're not in deficit. It's long and short. And that is kind of where the gratitude things come in, because a common complaint you hear in a relationship is that people do stuff all the time, but nobody ever says thank you to them. And they're, a lot of it's just the mundane stuff. It's the taking out the bins and doing the washing up and doing the ironing, and it's all that stuff that we have to do, but can go unnoticed. And yeah, the general idea is if you constantly saying thank you to somebody, well, people who feel appreciated will always do more than is expected of them. And the other thing is, it's important to not only say thank you to somebody, but to identify why that was something you want to thank them for. So, for example, if somebody's taking out the bins, like, don't just go, oh, thanks for that. It's like, wow, thank you. That's so kind. It's so helpful, so thoughtful of you. So they understand why it was good of them and what positive thing that says about them. And I found that, when we started doing this gratitude journal, it was a bit like, thanks, like, because we were in a bad place in our relationship, it's really hard to kind of like find something nice to say. And like, it was even sort of a matter of look back into the past for things that have happened, because, when you get into this bad place, it's sometimes it can feel very hard to just get over yourself and start to say thank you. But what we noticed is, particularly when we look back over this book as well, which is a beautiful thing about it, because over time you can look back and see how things changed, is we started off by writing one line, and then you know, towards the end of the book, we were writing like a page and a half, like, this is amazing and it's so special and wow, you know, and you know, it turns into this like wonderful thing where you're kind of just like writing love notes to each other essentially on a daily basis. And I just think gratitude in itself, like, I think if you follow anybody who's sort of in the personal development kind of sphere, they will tell you that gratitude in itself is one of the most important things that you can do. So being grateful for everything that you've got in life, everything that you know, things that you forget to be grateful for, you know, things that you take for granted. It's, you know, to be actively grateful about things, like even, you know, in our country, you know, it's kind of like, you know, we never used to say thank you for the NHS, but you know, we should be thankful for having a free healthcare system. You know, it's very easy to forget all the wonderful things that we have in our life that we take for granted. And same in relationships. So once we've kind of gone through this process of learning to say thank you to each other, it's completely second nature. So, you know, we're always saying thank you to each other for everything. And, you know, we notice now if we're not, and we pick ourselves up on it. But yeah, I feel like, honestly, if there was one really, and it's so simple to put into your day, even if when you wake up in bed in the morning, you turn to each other and just say literally like 3 things you're grateful for, or 1 thing you're grateful for, it just changes the tone of your relationship. So instead of focusing on all the bad stuff, you're focusing on the good stuff. And it, you know, it doesn't mean the bad stuff's just going to magically disappear. All it means is that as you both focus more on all the positives, those things tend to increase and grow.
Okay. Wow. You know what? I just want to say this. This is I have no more questions for you. I just want to respond to a couple of things. Yuna, thank you for asking the question. We deal with all types of relationships here: single, married, divorced, engaged. I don't know if there's any other type. We deal with a lot, and we have a YouTube channel which we are saving all of our Instagram live sessions. We are putting them on YouTube, so you can find them again. And I just want to say thank you so much again. 2 hours goes so fast when you're enjoying yourself. If I'm in a relationship that is struggling, can I come to Holly?
100%.
Can Holly help me?
100%.
People, you go to Holly privately. She will support you. Just message her. Happily ever after. Let's go there. Let me type it in. Happily ever after _RT. Is that right? How about I haven't spelled it right? Let me get it right. After _RT. Look, yeah, it's my big fingers, isn't it? Happily ever after. Okay, we can go to Holly, and you've heard her talk for 2 hours, and she has really been honest. Guys, please give some gratitude to those who put their lives out there. Just send the hearts through. Share this live, share the page, and subscribe to or follow her page on Instagram. Please, it's only right that we support each other, especially when people are giving us life. God bless you, sis, and I will call you afterwards. I've got so many quotes from you. We've got a few minutes left. I've got so many quotes from you. It's ridiculous. John Gottman, commitment, intimacy, and passion. Bruce Music, hostage, negotiate from Chris Boss. The #1 tip: practice gratitude. A gratitude journal. I'm gonna have to go to WH Smith. If it's England, I think I'll do it on Amazon and buy a book, an empty book. You changed your attachment style, which really was, if I'm getting it right, the change, right?
I don't know, 61 half dozen than the other, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, well, listen, man, it was big. I mean, another show, you can tell us the other stuff, right? But that was massive. Yeah. So she's coming back. Please, people who feel appreciated will always do more than we ask of them. Wow. So I think people are making comments. We've got 2 minutes here just to show the love. Yeah, and tomorrow we'll speak on men and mental health. We've got our YouTube channel is This Is Marriage UK. Thank you. They're saying. Round of applause, love, hearts, and so forth. Thanks for joining us, Holly. That's my wife. Chris. Oh, look, was it because she didn't have a pen? How can you join our show and not have a pen? If you want, someone is, look, they're quoting you now. If you want peace, prepare for war. This is it. I mean, yeah, it will be available online. Thank you, Holly. We're going to let you go.
Thank you.
We will see you again. That's the thing.
100%. Yeah. No, it's been really fun. Thank you so much. I've really loved it, and thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I massively appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who's turned up and listened to me ranting away about this, because I get all excited about relationships. So yeah, thank you for your time too, because time is one of the very most precious things that we can give. So thank you. God bless. Thank you so much. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. People, listen, tomorrow we are on with our friend from the US. In his time, it will be 5 hours difference, but he's talking to us. He's a black therapist, meaning not because he's a black guy therapist, but because he specializes in men, ethnic minorities. Send your husbands, your brothers, your sons, let them listen to this guy. We're going to deal with some stuff. Rex, it was proper bars, man. That was a bar of the century, man. I tell you. Share this live, people. Just share it. Don't ask me how to share it because I don't know. I just do lives. I don't know what else to do on here, but live and comment. God bless you all, man. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.